Hello, welcome. Thanks for joining us on the Arsaholics. Again, you've got Aaron and myself. Sorry, you're being shortchanged, but we'll try and compensate. Aaron, how's it going?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm looking forward to another, what's the word? Masterclass in two-way podcasting.
Let's
And we don't
do
need mine.
this.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're recording a little bit later than we normally would do after a game, right? So we played Brighton um, about 10 days ago now, roughly. And there was a fair amount of fallout. We unfortunately couldn't record for various reasons. Mize had COVID. Aaron, I think you're very busy with wedding stuff. But to be honest, there was so much fallout on Arsenal Twitter after a draw. After winning three games on the bounce, obviously a draw isn't the result everyone wanted, but it was sort of a typical, I think, response from a lot of the fan base. There was a lot of, pointing out the kind of various failings that perhaps have been relatively pervasive, which we can come onto a little bit. I mean, we don't intend to really go into much detail of the game, as we said, it's been a little while, but at a high level, it was it wasn't the greatest performance. It was a cold, rainy, very, very windy day in Brighton. Probably, the team have kind of come off the back of a home victory with great weather, North London derby to this. I mean, Aaron, and can you put down some reasons? You watched the game live. I was on my way to yet another wedding. But can you put some reasons down as to why we perhaps got a subpar performance after an epic one in the North London derby?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I've swung from two extremes. One being, oh, we shouldn't drop points to Brighton because we should be, maybe some of this is probably quite true in that we should be beating teams like Brighton if we have aspirations to be a top four team, top six team, whatever. But also looking back, I do actually think Brighton were really good that day. And ultimately, it was a well-deserved point. It was a fair point, I think. They had a lot of the ball, but I don't think they created too many high-quality chances. But you'd probably say they were the better team on balance. Why that happened, it's hard to say. I think you look at the two games, Spurs, where I think we played well, but also Spurs played really, really badly for the bulk of that game. And then Brighton, where I thought we played okay, but also Brighton played really well. And ultimately, we didn't really take any of our chances. We didn't really create much of note. But I thought we defended relatively well for the majority of the game. We stopped them from having any high quality chances, and ultimately we just still lack a bit of fluidity and sharpness going forward, which has been a bit of a underlying theme for this season, I think. So yeah, I think the focus going forward for the rest of the season and for this next kind of bunch of games will be how can we really fine tune this attack to get the most out of the talent we have.
I think there's lots of stuff there that I think we should really expand on, because we
Yeah.
can also expand on it in the context of the games that have just gone as well, and kind of some of these pervasive things that you've just mentioned. But I mean, I guess a couple just more quick things on the Brighton game. We spoke when we did the preview. We sort of debated a little bit as to whether Brighton were actually a good team or not. Looking at their fixtures before the Arsenal game, you could have argued that Arsenal were probably the hardest game that they had on paper. I mean, I think that they played Leicester and they beat Leicester at home at the Amex. But outside of that, you probably say Arsenal were sort of the biggest team that they played. They managed to get decent results, but without Basuma and without a couple of other first team players, it felt like we should, in theory, have given them a better game. But at the same time, do you think that allowed them, because what it looked like to me was the players that they brought in were a lot more physical, a bit more of like a bigger profile, and that kind of suited them down to the conditions, which are windy, wet, rainy. It wasn't a game for free flowing football necessarily. Do you think that we just kind of got cliche out muscled?
I don't think it was out muscled. I think we got out pressed. I think watching the game, I thought Brighton pressed us really well, especially in that first 15, 20 minutes. And we didn't really try to take them on. It looked like when they pressed, we freaked out and just went back. And what that kind of did was just set the tone for the rest of the game, which was, okay, well, we're a bit scared of your press, and we're not going to try too hard to play out from the back because we think you're better than us in pressing. Like, we think if you press us, you might win the ball. And that very much set the theme. And I thought that midfield, I mean, my memory's a bit sketchy, but I'm pretty sure it was Partey and Lokonga.
Yeah, the only change for the North London derby was Lokonga coming in.
Yeah, I thought actually we're both pretty disappointing in that respect. We should have been a bit braver. I thought we were just very timid for whatever reason. I don't know if that was the occasion, the weather, the North London derby hangover, but we needed to see more, and we didn't really have that, especially in the first half where Brighton were very much on top.
How much of a concern do you think is it? Because yes, one of the big positives is however poorly we played, we kept another clean sheet, and that is looking like a fairly regular thing with this new look back five. We've had the last 4 games, we've conceded 1 goal, which was a consolation goal against Tottenham. Otherwise, we look pretty resolute at the back. But having Partey, who is a physical player, Lokonga isn't a small guy either. I would have hoped they could have imposed themselves a little bit better in a game like this, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's, like you said, I think you're spot on there. The encouraging thing was, even when our midfield, at times got overrun or outplayed or outpassed or outpressed or whatever, the defense, stood their ground and did whatever they could to limit the quality of chances that Brighton had. Yeah, they had a couple of decent chances, and they did have a lot of the ball, but they weren't really creating, they weren't cutting us open all the time. A lot of their shots were, they had a lot of half chances, and you could argue on another day, one of those half chances goes in and we go behind. But we defended sensibly. And I think, a huge part of having a good defense is just not having defenders that consistently make errors. And this is, so far, for me at least, the theme, and I've probably jinxed this now, but the theme that I've got from this defense is, they might not be at the top elite level of defending, right? They're no Virgil van Dijk. Ben White's not Van Dijk, Gabriel's not Van Dijk, but they're not David Luiz or Mustafi either in terms of making errors. And that automatically probably gets you 6 to 9 points every season, because we're so used to just bad defenders costing us points. And these guys hopefully won't consistently do it. They're going to make mistakes, and that's going to happen. Ramsdale will probably at some point drop a clanger. Gabriel, there's been issues there have been close calls with Gabriel and Ben White where they've had the odd chance and gotten away with it. But hopefully, I hope they aren't as error prone as some of our previous centre backs.
Is this a bit of the Arsenal scars coming out here, right? Like,
absolutely.
Because it's one hand, obviously comparing them to Virgil van Dijk, which I completely agree, they're not Virgil van Dijk. But I'd probably say, at the moment, at least, they all look like a good set of defenders, right? Not, which is a bit different to saying that, they're not, at least they're not Mustafi, at least they're not Luiz. I think, for me, it looks like we've got a set of technically competent, intelligent defenders. I'd probably also go as far as saying, some of these very, very top centre-backs that you think about, if you look at Virgil van Dijk, if you look at how good Rudiger's playing at the moment, for example, how good were these players when they were 22 and 23 and 24, which is, essentially the age profile of, the likes of Gabriel and White. Look, I'm not saying they're all going to end up being absolute world beaters. But I think it is important. You raise a really important point about the fact that these guys will make mistakes. Ramsdale will make mistakes. And, hopefully the fans in the stadium, away fans and the home fans, when we are at the Emirates, can just keep supporting them like that we have, because I think it felt like even for a wet, rainy, cold day at Brighton, it still felt like our away fans were there and putting up a decent voice.
Yeah. I've heard some stories about how difficult it is to get away from Brighton, because I think they're at, I don't want to say, they're slightly outside of Brighton. I'm trying to say Farnham or Falmer or something, Falmer maybe. And yeah, it's an absolute pain in the backside to get trains out of there, from what I've heard. So anyone who made that journey has my full respect. I hope they didn't have too much trouble getting in and out.
It's a good night out though in Brighton. It's good fun. So they could have just stayed.
They could have just stayed. Yeah, when was it? It was a Saturday night, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Probably what a lot of people did, to be honest. Yeah.
I know. So let's move on from the game itself, right? Because we've come off 4 games. We're breaking this season up into convenient chunks. There was the pre-transfer window closure. There was the international break, which didn't happen. Exactly.
That was pre-season, yeah.
That we don't talk about that. That kind of vortex, that whatever you want to call it. Yeah, we forget about it. Mm-hmm. There's still a period that's gone. 10 points out of 12. Fine. Like, you could argue Norwich, Burnley are the teams that we should beat anyway. We've got the North London derby and away at a team like Brighton who've done okay this season. What do you think? 10 points out of 12. Are you happy?
Yeah, definitely. I remember very clearly, I said, look, when we would lost those first 3 games, it was actually, I looked at it as the next 3 rather than the next 4, which were Norwich, Burnley, Spurs. And I said, I think what I said was, if you lose to Spurs, you're in big trouble. If you beat Spurs, you're fine. And he did that. And I think the first 2, Norwich and Burnley, were also very good wins, and it was important we got the 3 points. I would have liked to see a bit more of a performance, but I think the North London derby win buys you that time to find that performance because of the level at which we hit against Spurs. It was the right performance at the right time for Arteta. So yeah, I think it's really good. It's a shame we couldn't just round it off with a 3rd win, but for a 4th win. But I think Mikel Arteta even got nominated for Manager of the Month.
He won.
He won it. Okay.
He won.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know how or who decides these things, and if it's just another Arsenal Twitter thing. But
you're being a bit harsh, aren't you? Come on, he was the only manager who won all the games that he had in the month that was being judged.
Oh, because Brighton was October?
I think Brighton fell into the period that, wasn't being judged.
Okay,
was it yes, it would have been 2nd of October. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Fine. And yeah, fair enough. He played 3, won 3, conceded 1 goal, I think. So can't really complain. I think, and we'll probably go on to this next batch of games is going to tell us a lot. But no, I'm very, very impressed. I think it was very important after that first 3. Even if you look at that first 3 games, it was the Brentford game that really let us down. I think if you'd beaten Brentford at the start of the season, then this whole kind of post-mortem that we did after the first 3 games would have been quite a straightforward conversation of, okay, we beat Brentford, but we lost to Chelsea, we lost to Man City. They're 2 teams that are going to be better than us. And then since then, we've beaten pretty much everyone else we should have beaten, and then had a tough game away at Brighton. And unfortunately, that didn't go our way, but we came away with a point. And that's not a bad start to the season. So yeah, I'm certainly happy. I'm certainly seeing the benefits of playing once a week and not having midweek European football. And I really hope we will start to really see the benefits of that with other teams dropping points come this next batch of games. But my main takeaway is we probably would like to see a bit more in the attacking side of things.
Yeah, and I mean, let's go on to that. So Norwich have played 7 games and they have lost 6. They have drawn 1. They are also the only team in the league who have scored fewer goals than Arsenal.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That's the stat for you. Yeah.
No, well, The devil's in the detail a little bit, because
Yeah.
actually what it is that Norwich have scored 2 goals, and then there's a bunch of teams that have scored 5, and Arsenal are one of those teams. But only
Okay.
5 goals, only 5 goals out of 7 games still. 3 of those in one game, you know. When we look at this period that's just gone, and I think we've talked about our defense. We've talked about this back five over the last few podcasts. I think there's almost not too much more that needs to be said about that. But how concerned now, looking forward, when we look forward to this coming bunch of games, how concerned are you about the attack and how that's coming together?
I'm not overly concerned because I believe we have the players now to score goals. I think we look at the attack and we're primarily we've settled on a front 3-4, like 3 or 4 players that pretty much look like they're going to start every game, bar the 1 or 2 changes here and there. And that's kind of Aubameyang up front. And I'm really glad, we have decided that Aubameyang is our striker and we're not doing this Lacazette versus Aubameyang thing every game. Then we have players, it's basically after that, it's Odegaard, Saka, Smith Rowe, and then Pepe. And I think between the 4 of them for 3 places, they'll all kind of rotate in and out of those positions behind Aubameyang. And then we have players like Lacazette, Martinelli coming off the bench. And I think that's not a bad attack. Those aren't bad players. And it was very different, I think, when we were, playing Lacazette as a number 10 and, playing Aubameyang on the left wing or right wing, playing Saka all over the place and not really settling. It sounds like we've kind of started making decisions on how the attack should be in terms of personnel. So now it's just about, will those players get you goals? And do you think they're capable of getting you goals? And I think absolutely yes. We saw it against Spurs when it worked out. We just need to see that happen more consistently and in games where you don't get acres and acres of space to play, because you're not always going to get that. I thought Odegaard was pretty disappointing on the game on the Saturday against Brighton. And a lot of the success of this team will basically depend on Smith Rowe and Odegaard making things happen.
Yeah, I agree with you. For me, this international break was really timely. We needed the international break the last time it happened, and I think we needed it this time as well, because I feel like after 3 games on the bounce, when then suddenly you draw a game and the momentum drops slightly, I think this couple of weeks is probably going to allow Arteta to regroup the players and just be like, hang on, let's carry on doing the things that we were doing well. Let's think back to that Tottenham game and not and correct a few things that need to be corrected early doors. This being said, I will challenge you a little bit. You seem confident that we've got the tools to score goals, but again, going back to the fact that we've had 7 games, scored 5 goals, 3 have been in one game. Playing devil's advocate, couldn't you argue that game was purely a product of everything going right for us, everything going wrong for Tottenham, and what other if we take that game out of consideration, do you really think that these guys have shown you enough to make you believe that we can score goals?
Yeah, it's a fair challenge. I think ultimately, you look at, in terms of personnel, you look at that attack. Yeah, it's not the attack that's going to win us a league. I think that's clear. But is this an attack that is good enough to get us a reasonable number of goals, which are probably enough to get you 5th, 6th place? I don't know what the average number of goals required for 5th or 6th place. So, and if we go at the current rate, I would definitely feel like it won't be enough. But do I think, I think, put it this way, if we don't get the attack working, I think it's very much about the tactics rather than the personnel. And that's what I mean. I don't think you could change players, you could improve them, but are you really going to find a better wide player than Bukayo Saka? Are you really going to find a better number 10 than Odegaard? Are you really going to find better players than Smith Rowe? Are you going to find a better striker than Aubameyang to come in and drastically change this? Look, we're not going to go and sign Lukaku or something like that, right? So we have good players. We have promising young players, and yeah, they'll have off days. But if it isn't working, I think it becomes much more of a tactical issue than a personnel issue.
And it's a fair challenge. I think it's a really fair response back. I particularly agree with your point on if you list some of those players out there, how many wide players are there are better than Saka right now? There are some. Don't get me wrong, there are.
Yeah.
But in trying to achieve the goals that we are trying to achieve right now, which I think that we'd say if we finish top six, we'd probably be happy.
Mhm.
It's probably, you're right. It's probably the tools that enough tools given that we're not in Europe to achieve those things. I agree with you. Actually, if we look a little bit now at just what's been happening in this international break, that's been very encouraging because actually all of these players have scored goals. Aside from Odegaard, all these names that you mentioned, Pepe scored, Aubameyang scored,
But
Saka
the
scored.
big one, right? The
Yeah.
one I've really
Oh,
been
yeah,
after
yeah, yeah. ESR
is
scored and
no, and Thomas Partey
there you go.
started scoring
Yeah.
goals.
Exactly. So goals are coming. So everyone seems to have their shooting boots on over the international break. So hopefully it's a case where they come back with a little bit of confidence, knowing that they can find the back of the net. Um, and actually, just on that, what was slightly concerning is obviously, well, this bit wasn't concerning. ESR scored this absolutely magnificent counter-attack goal for
Yeah, I
England,
saw that.
where, geez, I mean, he looks so fast.
Mm.
And we've seen him have crazy changes of paces, in small doses, but I don't think I've seen him sprint the length of the pitch at a pace like that. It was quite frightening and a good finish and a man of the match performance in the end. The slight concern was the bandage wrapped around his knee at the end of
Oh,
the
I didn't
game.
see that.
Yeah, I don't think it was anything that seemingly stopped. I don't think it qualifies as a big injury per se. I don't think there was much concern about it. But hoping for the best. If we decide to be precautionary, that could see Pepe come back into the fold. I'm guessing for the Palace game. Let's just, I guess, shift our thoughts to the Palace game before we kind of look at the next group of fixtures holistically. We're back at home. The players are going to have some really good positive memories of being at home recently, right? Like, the Spurs game, but obviously even Norwich played well before, and the Wimbledon game had great atmosphere, really good memories. And I think the boys will be up for it. What do you see? I mean, do you see, assuming if Smith Rowe's fit, I presume, do you go with the same 11 that played against Brighton? Do you make any changes?
I would, yeah, I think I would probably go with the same 11, playing Lokonga and Partey.
So you will go for this 4-2-3-1 as opposed to going back to this 4-3-3 that he's tried a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, I think the reason I like it is because it just gives us an option off the bench as well. And increasingly, I think football isn't just about, play your best 11 and win the game in the first 60 minutes or whatever. It's about, okay, well, this is the first 30 minutes. This is my plan. This is the plan to half time. This is the plan for the first 15 minutes of the half. And this is my plan for the last 15, 20 minutes of the second half. And I think having someone like Pepe coming off the bench, or it doesn't have to be Pepe could start, bring Smith Rowe off the bench, is such a powerful substitution to make, as opposed to if you play them all, then your options for changing it become, you can either bring Lokonga on if you're winning, which is fine, but you then struggle because, then you can only really bring on Lacazette or maybe Martinelli. And that's a bit different. So I think Arteta will probably favour the more balanced approach and the more balanced midfield. But, having that 4-3-3 would also be a lot of fun. So it'll be really interesting to see. And I think the other good thing about this, actually, you mentioned it, is the schedule is a bit weird for us over the coming couple of weeks, but actually probably quite beneficial because we're the late Monday night game of this weekend. But I think that's probably quite good because our players are getting back from international duty. So players are coming back on Thursday. We've got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to prepare for the game. It's not an advantage because Palace players probably also have the same thing. But if you compare ourselves to, the teams playing early on Saturday, for example, that's a big advantage. And then, funnily enough, we're then the early game the next week. So we play Monday night and then Friday night of that same week. and then we don't have any European football, so we can sort of do that. So it's a bit of a weird week of football, but yeah. So we're not actually going to have a weekend game for a little while, but yeah, very very much looking forward to the game Monday.
It feels like it'll be a game where, well, it'll be the Monday Friday combination. I think if we win on Monday, it'll be really, really, really good. Momentum is there, and kind of. I worry if we don't get the result that we want from Monday, mentally regrouping to on paper what is a better team. Villa in theory, but I mean, I guess look, just going back to the Palace game for now. Palace are an interesting team, aren't they? Obviously, right now they are sort of every Arsenal fan second team because of the Patrick Vieira connection.
Yeah.
But they're an interesting one because they're basically drawn a bunch of games. They've won one game this season, where they battered Tottenham, but that doesn't count because Tottenham get battered everywhere they go.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Love it. So a bit of a difficult team to suss out because, against Brighton, although they drew, they played extremely well. Conor Gallagher is doing really well for them. They seem to, like, Vieira slowly is clearly building a team that is responding to what he's trying to do, and they look okay. But what do you think? Do you think we should be beating Palace? Do you think?
Should we be beating them? Absolutely. No disrespect to Palace or Villa. We should be beating them both. We're at home. I think ultimately there are very few teams we shouldn't be beating at home comfortably, I think. And there, I'd say if Liverpool come there, City and Chelsea, you'd probably say the teams that I'd be like, okay, fine, we couldn't beat them at home. But other teams, even Man United, if and when they do come here, I'd be disappointed if we don't beat them, because when we're at home, I expect us to do well. So yeah, we should absolutely be looking to beat Palace. Palace are, like you said, a bit of a weird team. I just don't know what you get with Palace. Sometimes they're like really dynamic and really going for it, with Zaha doing all sorts of crazy things, and then the next they just really limp and really weak and very passive. So yeah, I think let's see. I mean, I hope Vieira takes them to new heights, but not on Monday.
Yeah, look, I totally agree, and it'd be interesting to see what kind of tactics he deploys against us. It's quite a difficult one to predict, I find. Yeah, basically because for him, he's probably in a situation where he's probably thinking, well, I do need to think about I do need to think about points, whether it be just even getting the 1 point for a draw. Can he afford to set up for a win and risk losing badly? I figure like he does still need to inspire some confidence in the team, because you know how it is at the moment. It's kind of that really weird period of the season where very quickly you can find yourself losing 2 or 3 games on the bounce. Games start this period just coming a little bit thicker and faster. But I agree with you. I think in this little period that we've got coming up, and let's talk about the period in general. It's a bit of an interesting one because we look at the teams that we're playing. They're all having really interesting seasons thus far, right? So you've got Palace, which we've just discussed. Basically draw all their games. We've playing Aston Villa, who are the opposite. They basically win or they lose. And equally, you're not really sure what you're going to get. We've got Leicester, who, I mean, are Leicester coming or going? I don't know. Are Leicester even a good team anymore? I'm not sure. Are they just waiting to explode and be really good again? I'm not sure. And then I believe it's Watford that is the 4th fixture in the Premier League, who new manager, who knows where they'll be by then. When you look at these fixtures coming up, on paper, it feels like it's relatively kindish as a grouping. I mean, what are your thoughts? What do you think we should be aiming for? What do you think we'll get?
I think the big thing is, in that bunch of 4, 3 of those games are at home. To the 3, you'd say easier on paper teams, which are Watford, Villa, and Palace. So that's good. Ultimately, I expect us to win those 3 games at home, and then the Leicester away. Like you say, Leicester are a bit of a weird team at the moment. I think they are what it looks like they're trying to do is transition away from this model of being get the ball to Jamie Vardy and score. But that hasn't really worked. And all that's happening now is they're doing the get the ball to Jamie Vardy and score thing not as well, because the only person that's scoring now is still Jamie Vardy for them. So it's a bit of they're a bit of a weird team. And then, they, I can't help. Fun fact, if you go back to the season preview that we did, I said the biggest disappointment underachievers this season would be Leicester.
Oh, really? I can't remember that.
Yeah, I said Leicester would be the biggest letdowns. But yeah, I'm sure I would remember because you love Leicester. I do love Leicester more than Arsenal. But I think they're going to try and do this rebuild, and I don't think they're going to rebuild away from Jamie Vardy, because they've signed, they signed Patson Daka, they signed a couple of other good players whose names I can't even remember now. But I just think Brendan Rodgers has probably taken them as far as they can go, and even they really should have just scraped Champions League once to just justify it. And I think now that other teams have strengthened, and the only way that they were going to sneak in over last season is because someone had underperformed, and I don't see anyone in the top four underperforming so much to let Leicester in again. So I think with European football, it's just they're facing the weight of being a big club now, and they're not underdogs anymore. Therefore, teams set up differently against them. So the game against when we play them will be really interesting, because who are the underdogs there? Who are the favourites there to win? If you go on league position, Leicester are favourites to win because they finished comfortably above us. But maybe not comfortably, but they finished above us. But based on players, based on the on the day performance, it could be anything. We could easily get smashed. We could easily smash them.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it really doesn't feel that long ago at all. I'd even say it's even, a few games ago, even after we had beaten Norwich, maybe even after we beaten Burnley. I think there was still a feeling amongst the media pundits that, Arsenal was still a team that people weren't really sure about. It's very weird hearing a lot of them in the press now. Jamie Carragher said it recently. Paul Merson said it recently after heavily criticising Arsenal, not that long ago. They both said that, watch out for Arsenal in the top four race.
Yeah, they're so fickle and so. I mean, are you basically making the point that people flip flop?
Yeah,
or is it just no one really knows what we are? Or
to be honest, a bit of both. I think that in this context, when we're discussing Leicester, I think it's kind of an important comparison because. When you're saying who goes in as the underdog in that game, well, actually, if the current rhetoric is to be believed and Arsenal are actually this team that could be challenging for top four, then actually, we should be the favourite going into this game. But we are away, and I still think going away to the King Power Stadium is difficult. That being said, our record there isn't that bad. I think we won last season. I think it was a pretty good performance, actually. I think they went 1-0 up. Was it Yuri Tielemans? I want to say he scored, and then we went and won 3-1. I want to say.
Aubameyang scored and.
Yeah, I think so. I think Pepe scored one. Yeah, I think it was a decent result. So yeah, look, like on that basis, what do you predict for the Palace game? What result? And then how many points do you think we should be aiming for?
So what I think Arsenal are now, or where I think we've landed, is basically we're probably very similar to the team that we were at the second half of last season, which is we'll probably just about do enough every single game to just keep routinely picking up enough wins to slowly climb the table. I think, but we'll have the odd draw, but touch wood, I don't think we're going to drop any massive clangers where we get absolutely hammered 2 or 3 games in a row. I think we'll consistently pick up wins. So I honestly think we'll pick up 10 points from 12, so 3 wins and a draw. So we'll probably end up beating Leicester away, but end up drawing at home to, Villa or something like that. So yeah, I think we'll beat Palace. draw to Villa, beat Watford, and beat Leicester.
Okay, so you're going to go for 10 points out of the 12.
Yes.
And that would be pretty good, to be honest, wouldn't it? I mean,
yeah, awesome.
that would be pretty good. Look, the difficult thing is for me when I think about Arsenal right now is it feels like unless the attack do start at some point, the attack is going to need to bail out the defense.
Yeah.
And at the moment, over the last 4 games, the defense has been, the main component of our success. Let's just call it that way, right? And as we touched on, they are going to have a bad game. They may have bad games, plural, and what you hope is that we can get our act together in a way in which actually that doesn't end up costing us games. If that happens, because I have a feeling over the next 4 games we are going to see a game where the defense doesn't play well and we concede 1 or 2. I think that might happen. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we concede a couple of goals to Villa at home. So a game like that. But I think if we concede a couple of goals to Villa and if we win that game, I can certainly see us getting 10 points out of 12. I think that, but I think if we lose to Villa, to be honest, I think if we drop points, in any of these 2 games coming up, I'm not sure that Leicester would go very well. And who knows the state that Watford and us will be in by that 4th game. But listen, if I'm going to go for prediction, I'm going to remain optimistic because I do think that we're developing into a side that is going places. I'm not saying right to the very top. I'm saying that I think we're developing into a decent Arsenal side, and I think the Brighton away game we shouldn't think too much about it. I think the conditions in that game were awful, and I think it's really, really, really important that when you have games like that, you draw. You don't lose, and that should be what they take away. They should go, look, guys, we were rubbish, but you know what? We drew, we kept a clean sheet, and that's what good teams do. And now we need to go back at home and just get that momentum. I feel it's a professional group of players, an intelligent group of players. I think we'll beat Palace, but I don't think it's going to be a battering or anything. I think it could probably be like a 1-0 game.
No, I think you might be right. I think, like I said, that second half of the season, I don't think we really battered anyone. We just kind of did enough to win the games. And the big worry, I think, like you said, we're not a Chelsea who can grind out consistent 1-0 wins here and there. Like, we will have games where the defense costs us, and you're probably right. We don't have the attack yet to bail out that moment, and our defense isn't good enough to consistently keep clean sheets. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we are, but I don't think we're really going to develop into this, prime Simeone team that grind out 1-0 wins. But
and let's see, mate, because at the end of the day, Brighton are a good side defensively.
They played really well. Fair play to them. If they play like that, they will challenge for top 6 just like we will.
Wow, that's a big shout. You think Brighton could challenge top 6, really?
Well, if they play like that. I mean, if they consistently play like the way they did. I mean, they're 2nd or 3rd in the league now?
No, I think they're like 5th or 6th. I think so. Okay. I'll just check that for you now. But no, okay. I wouldn't go as far as that. I think that so they're 6th right now.
Okay. Sorry, fake news. Then.
No. In fairness, they have 14 points and they are joint with Man City, Man United, and Everton. Who are
so if they'd beaten us, they probably would have been joint top, right?
If they beat us, they would have been joint top.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
So we're dealing with title contenders.
But their fixtures have been fairly kind, right?
Yeah.
But hey, listen, I think your point is right. They're not bad. They can certainly defend well. And so that's why I think maybe, let's not get too carried away about the fact that, it was a cold, wet, windy away day against a team who defend well. Let's not worry too much necessarily about the attack. I think the proof will be in the pudding. If if we go Palace at home on Monday, and if it isn't a good attacking performance, then we probably have right to be concerned for the games coming up. But I think that my prediction for the games coming up is I think that we're going to win our home games. I think we'll probably draw against Leicester, because I think that I get the impression Arteta, if he wins the first couple of games, especially, I think he'll be really, I think he'll try and be quite cautious about it, and he'll try and say, okay, do you know what? Like, I've got 6 points already from this kind of little grouping of games. Like, I'll take a draw. And I think he'd kind of just want to make sure that we don't lose. Personally. So I'm going to go 10 points out of 12. But yeah, look, I think overly, it sounds like the both of us are pretty optimistic. And I think that if you talk to most match going fans at the moment, I think everyone does feel that kind of bit of optimism. But it does feel, mate. I don't know what you think when I scan through social media, and kind of try and ascertain the views of all the fans everywhere, and even some of the bloggers. Some people would have you believe, I guess, that this could be another disaster waiting to happen if our defense starts creaking, if they have a few bad games, then we probably don't have the attack necessarily right now in place to get the points, and then where do we go from there if we start losing 2 to 3 games on the bounce?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think fine margins has never been more obvious, like more finer with this team. We're quite close to being a top 4, top 5 team, I think. You maybe not top 4, but top 5, top 6 team. I don't think we're that far off, but we're also quite close to being a bottom half team as well. And in all of those games, that you could just say, like, what if this happened? What if that happened? And you could overanalyze it, but ultimately, at the end of the day, you just have to look at the results and say, what did we do? And we don't really have enough data to fully analyze this Arsenal team that we put together. But I think after the next 4 games, plus the cup game against Leeds, which we haven't really spoken about, we will know where we'll have a good idea of where we're likely to finish, or if we are going to be this disaster, fighting for top 10 team, or are we actually genuinely going to push for top 6, top 5, maybe even top 4?
If we get 10 points out of the next 12 games, we may even be top 4 at that point. Do you think if we get 10 points out of our 12 games, that will, in your mind, see us as a good side and see us as genuine top 4 challengers?
I don't want to sound negative, but I don't think so. I just see Chelsea, Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool. Chelsea, Man United, and Man City have spent a lot of money in terms of wages and fees, and has United have gone and signed arguably one of the best players of all time, and maybe not his prime, but still very much top level. Chelsea have spent a lot of money. Man City, and then Liverpool are just a really, really good team, are still kind of riding that wave of their best players being at the top of their game. So for us to really sneak into top 4, something has to go massively wrong. And you'd look at that top 4 now and you say the most likely team to drop the ball is probably Man United, because they've got, but then the way I see Man United this season is, they're still not a great team, but they've now got this absolute superstar who can just bail them out and pick up points single-handedly for them. So they would have to really drop their level, and we would have to consistently increase our level to get anywhere near that. I don't want to sound too pessimistic, but I think this team is just not there yet. But the good thing is, you'd want to see this team next season, even if we don't sign anyone, this team should be a level better. And that's the good thing about signing better players, is that this team should consistently get better, even if we don't add to the squad.
Yeah, you're completely right. I mean, just again, I agree with what you're saying around the quality of the teams that, in theory, you Man United, Man City, Chelsea, Liverpool, completely agree with you that on paper, and kind of as units. They're better sides. But does it not come back to the thing that we've discussed kind of quite frequently, which is around this benefit of not having European football? Do we even need to be as good a side as those guys? Ultimately, we've seen them drop points. All of those teams have been dropping points every now and again. I think, I guess that's my point. If we end up being a side who ends up, for the vast majority of the time, beating teams that we should beat, and then staying competitive with, maybe try and take some points off Man United, maybe try and take a couple of points off some of the other teams in the other fixtures. Yeah. But let's just say that doesn't happen.
It's possible. Yeah. It's possible we might sneak in there, but are we consistently good enough to do that thing of beating the smaller teams, the teams around us? And it's beating the teams below us, but also beating teams like Leicester, beating teams like Spurs, Everton, and those likes.
We shall see. Yes,
cool. We shall.
All right. Well, how about we call it a day then?
Yes.
We've got, so we've still got a little while until our next game, haven't we? So it is Monday, so we're going to see a number of Premier League games play before that, and that'll be interesting to see. Are there any big fixtures this weekend coming up?
I don't think there are, actually. I was just looking the other day. Let me pull them up, see if there's anyone. I mean, it's Leicester Man United, which is interesting.
That will be interesting.
Then, nothing. Yeah, if you look at teams around us, I mean, Spurs are away to the new richest club in the world, Newcastle.
Oh, geez, we should we talk about that? I feel like that's going to take. Let's do 5 minutes. Let's just do a quick 5 minutes on Newcastle, because that has how have we not? That's been mind blowing, actually. Wow. So just in case you've been living under a rock, Newcastle have been bought by, effectively, although they've managed to legally prove that they are not controlled by the Saudi government. We're basically talking about a Saudi investment fund here. And if we look at the net worth of the people who make up that fund, you're talking about a group of individuals who are richer than all of the owners of the Premier League combined. Not only that, they're richer than all of the other top 10 owners of any football clubs in the world. So you're talking about wealth that we have never seen before. And we said that when Roman Abramovich came. We said that when City owners came. You've now got a bunch of people who are taking it to another level. And I know Newcastle are this likable. They're a very likable team, in my opinion. It's a lovely city. I really like Newcastle, but geez, mate, I mean, what do you think? Firstly, let's just talk about the ethics behind this very slightly. How do you feel about it from an ethical standpoint?
I don't like it at all.
Yeah.
So I think, what? Okay, there's two things. So I don't like it. I don't like the fact that essentially countries are now buying football clubs.
They will argue that they have proven in the court of law that's not the case.
Yeah, but let's be real. So it's really, you kind of have to separate them. There's Man City, PSG, and now Newcastle, who are owned by three, states in the Middle East, states within countries in the Middle East. And now and then you have to ask the question: why would a country buy a football club, right? Or why would a country's government essentially buy a football club? And the only real reason is sport washing, which is the idea that by doing that, you effectively use your clubs as marketing vehicles and ways to make your country look good and maybe hide some other things that your country is doing that's not so good. So Abu Dhabi has been doing this with Man City. Qatar has been doing it with PSG. Is it Qatar and PSG? I think it is. And now on a whole nother level, Saudi are doing this with Newcastle. So I don't like it just for the fact that I don't think countries should be buying football clubs. And then what I really don't like is the fact that, in my opinion, I don't want to get too political here, but Saudi Arabia have been accused of doing a lot of not nice things to a lot of not nice people. The government, not the people of Saudi Arabia, but the government. And I don't like that they're using Newcastle to hide all that. And I don't like how it's been just waved through essentially because it's Saudi Arabia, and they seem to be having a lot of links with FIFA, with UEFA, with Arsene Wenger, all that stuff. I don't like that. And what I really don't like is, the proof that it's working is now if someone goes and attacks Saudi Arabia, you get a bunch of Newcastle fans defending Prince, I can't remember his name, bin Hammam, I don't want to say it, the Saudi prince. Like, how is the world, and how has the set of circumstances evolved that some random Geordies in probably a working class part of Newcastle are stepping in online to defend the Saudi prince, one of the richest men in the world, from attack by journalists?
Okay. So I get sport washing as a concept, and I think in theoretical terms, I think what you said is correct. But I mean, I find it slightly far-fetched, but if you're in a situation where you're this government that has been, accused of so many various things over the years, that your image globally, certainly amongst the West, isn't necessarily great, and you think, okay, how am I going to rectify it? And you think, okay, buying a Premier League football club and turning them into a really great side is going to, on a global scale, change the image of our country and allow people to ignore or forget the various things that they don't like us for. Do you really think that's realistic? No, but do you think that's realistic? I mean, who cares if a bunch of Newcastle fans are defending them on Twitter? Okay, it's there are different words for it. I want to say like hypocritical, a bit crass, a bit whatever. But it's not enough to change global image, though, is it?
I think what it does, though, is it gives them power to control the narrative a bit more. And I think the example I always think of is China. Now, again, I'm trying not to get too political here, but when Özil highlighted the plight of the Muslims in that, I can't say the name, the Uyghur region of China, Arsenal basically bottled it and didn't say anything about it because they didn't want to upset China. Now, if, let's just say, for example, Saudi Arabia did something really, really bad, okay, and all of the UK or all of the West or whoever was united against highlighting this issue that Saudi Arabia are committing mass atrocities against whatever. And I'm not saying they do or they don't, but let's just say it happens. Do you really think Newcastle would say something? Do you think Newcastle fans will stand against crimes of the Saudi Arabian government? Probably not. Almost definitely not, because they're not going to upset their owner. And that's how they get away with it. That's how governments can do this. And there's one thing, and I understand, I'm not blaming Newcastle, because I understand how, we all know how it feels to have an owner that you probably don't like. And Ashley definitely seemed like one of the worst out there. So by all means, be very happy that Mike Ashley is gone. But, I think it's a shame that, and as fans, ultimately, if you're saying a multi-billion-dollar empire is going to take over your country, your club, and turn them into the best club in the world, you'd probably be like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. But someone needs to stop bad people from buying football clubs. And ultimately, it seems like the Premier League don't really care too much about it.
Yeah, look, I do agree. I do agree on principle, and I think it's an interesting one. I think there's lots and lots of arguments around this. One of the things that frustrates me is suddenly this argument, which is being predominantly used by Newcastle fans at the moment, but there are other fans who are also sort of saying this. They're saying things like, oh, look at everyone piping up right now, but they never piped up when the F1 was in Saudi, or this was in Saudi, or these companies have got have financial interests in Saudi. Uber has shares owned by so and so, X, Y, Z. They basically say this, and this really frustrates me, because I sort of think you can't use stuff like that to then turn around and say, well, that means you can't complain about anything. You never complained about that instant there or that particular thing there, so you can't complain about this bigger thing that's in your face because you should have done it before. That makes no sense to me. That's complete nonsense. I think that just needs to go straight in the bin. And whenever you see anyone doing that on social media, or, I always completely ignore, discredit, whatever. So that's frustrating. And but I suppose on the flip side to this, it will just be very, very interesting to see how this all does play out, because ultimately financial fair play, I know that it's been something that is, it's not exactly like the most strenuous piece of litigation. It's not exactly something that people haven't, but I'm intrigued to see how this plays out, Aaron, and from the perspective of what Newcastle's owners decide that they want to do in terms of how fast they want to try and accelerate their ambition, and what happens if they don't necessarily see their ambition going. And I think the argument is, what people are saying is, well, they won't care if it doesn't fail or it doesn't, whatever. But I guess where I'm going with this is, do you think, to go back to your question or your almost plea of the world, where you kind of said, around stopping bad people from buying football clubs, do you think one football club just needs to feel to just really, really, really suffer under an owner? Like, I'm talking about like an MK Dons kind of version, like almost relocating Newcastle to some random place, completely stripping the club out. Do you think that needs to happen to someone before there's change?
Yes. Well, I think it was. Yeah, I mean, we've peaked now, right? Doesn't really get worse than this. I don't know.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, who else can buy football clubs? But it doesn't get worse than this. And ultimately, do I want Newcastle to fail? No, of course not. I think it would be really cool if there's another team fighting at the top level to mix it up amongst the cities, Chelsea's, and everyone else. And that's awesome. And if Newcastle that club, that's cool. But I just don't like where the money's coming from. If another billionaire taking them over, let's just say, I don't know, Daniel Ek got really bored of trying to buy Arsenal. He went and bought Newcastle. I think that'd be, I'd be a bit annoyed, but I think that'd be really good for Newcastle.
Yeah.
So it's not about Newcastle getting money. It's not about Newcastle challenging. Let's be honest, if they improve, it's probably our place in the top four that's under threat. Our prospective place in the top four. That it's another team that's going to be fighting us in the next 2 or 3 seasons. But I think that's good for football. I think competition is good, but I just don't like where the money's come from. But what will it take for owners, what will it take for the Premier League to step in? I don't think there is anything. I think sports authorities have shown it's not just the Premier League, like you said, it's F1 going there. Anthony Joshua's fought in Riyadh. Saudi Arabia very much involved with FIFA at the top level in terms of with what's his name, the head of FIFA, and Infantino, who's very good friends with the Crown Prince there. So the money is talking, and the money is yielding significant influence and significant power for Saudi Arabia. Now, what they do with it is going to be very interesting. Will they do something bad with Newcastle? Probably not. I just think they'll make a lot of expensive mistakes, and that's okay, because if they sign 3 or 4 bad £50 million players, they can just buy another 3 or 4 £50 million players, and eventually they'll get it right. So yeah, I think what it will take will be something to really go wrong, but I can't see what that is, and I can't see that happening, because I think they've probably got enough smart people there. I mean, if they can convince the Premier League that the PIF are not the Saudi Arabian government, they can run a football club properly.
Yeah. So we know it's happening. It's happened. Now, you're right about Arsenal being potentially, the club, one of the clubs. You think Arsenal, Tottenham, they're, 2 of the clubs that would probably suffer the most in terms of the footballing hierarchy with another superpower. But, I was thinking that in the initial kind of instance, it might be a little bit about, and I think I tweeted this a while ago, it might be a little bit about how when Man City first started getting their money and they started buying some of these players who were surplus to requirements from the bigger clubs for a bit of a premium, like when they when we lost Toure, Clichy, Adebayor, etc. Do you think that could be the case with Newcastle? Do you think Newcastle could come in and start giving us lots of money for the likes of Alex Lacazette, Eddie, Nelson, Ainsley Maitland-Niles?
No, I think what they'll do is try and buy some big names, but not big players. So I don't know. I can see them buying like a Zlatan Ibrahimovic type player. Some of these like older pros just to get their profile up a bit and to excite the fans. Like, wouldn't rule it out. Like, let's say in a year's time when United are looking to move on past Ronaldo, they might sign a 39-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo or something like that. So I don't think this is going to be I could be wrong, but like a perfect footballing strategy executed to like perfection. I think the first 2-3 years will be about, okay, well, how can we increase our profile on the world stage whilst becoming slowly competitive? So I think, this season will be about, maybe getting a top 10, top 8. Then the season after that will be, how can we become a European team playing European football? And they don't need to buy the Granit Xhakas of this world. I mean, I think what they'll do is they'll probably buy a few big names just to get the fans on side, get the marketing in, and then slowly work their way up. But then in 3 or 4 years' time, they'll just go big. Because, right now, the world's best players aren't going to go to Newcastle, right? But in 2 years, 3 years' time, they might.
So you are effectively describing what was very similar to what Man City did do, right? I mean, the first signing was Robinho, wasn't it? It was kind of, they were kind of just trying to go for whatever they could get.
Anyone who they could buy in with big wages, basically.
Exactly.
People who wanted money over success, short-term success.
Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. Well, I mean, let's see how it all pans out. We haven't played Newcastle yet this season. Let's hope when do we obviously we'll play them once before the January transfer window. But
so we want to play them before they've signed Mbappe and Haaland, right?
Exactly. So let's see how it pans out. But anyway, look, Dag, so we obviously, we when Aaron and I spoke before the pod, we thought this was going to be a short one, and it was on track to be a bit of a short one, but then completely forgot about Newcastle. I felt we had to talk about it anyway, and I'm sure that won't be the last time that we talk about Newcastle this season. But anyway, look, thanks everyone for tuning in. We have got a really crucial period coming up, and let's hope for the best, guys. So if anyone is going to be at the game on Monday, Aaron, and you're not coming to the game on Monday, are you?
No, I mean,
you're not.
Yeah, I can't come.
Sad.
Well, I mean, there's still tickets available, so I might still change my mind and buy a ticket. But no, you've thankfully found someone to take my ticket.
Absolutely, I have. And look, and I guess a shout out to anyone listening. And I think I'm assuming everyone listening to this podcast, when you go to games, you've got much better options. But just in case you don't have those options, please always feel welcome to drop us a message, because there's always going to be one of us at least at the game, and we're always drinking before the game or after the game. So if you are at the Palace game, if you are at the if you're at the Villa game on Friday as well, just drop us a message, hit us up on Twitter or whatever, and if you want to grab a drink, please get in touch. So cool.
Oh, and actually, on that note, if you are listening, and if you could like, subscribe, rate us on all the various platforms that you hear us on, that would be super appreciated. And let us know what you think. If you think we talk nonsense, tell us about it, and we'd love to hear your feedback.
Yeah, actually, I should shout. We went to that wedding on Saturday. There's quite a few people there who listen to the podcast, so really appreciate that. I want to shout out Para, who I hope Para's listening. He gave us some really useful feedback, and I think that one of the things that he mentioned, but some others have mentioned, is around us potentially getting other people on the show, and that is definitely something that we are thinking about doing. Look, we are nearly 50 episodes in, and we never really thought that far ahead. But we've had some really, really great people get in contact asking to collaborate. A few people who I think would be really, really cool to get on the show. So it may well be that. I mean, hey, look, we might have to if it's just going to be me and Aaron in all the time, right? And when the rest of the guys just drop out. So cool. Sweet. All right. So I guess, watch this space. But please, yeah, thank you everyone for your continued support and enjoy the rest of your week, guys.
Cheers. Bye.
All right.